Hey guys, and welcome to the Designer Future podcast. I've got a very special guest on here today. Please, man, go ahead and introduce yourself for me.
How's it going? I'm Brock Swinson from Creative Principles, a podcast and video essay series.
Wicked, cool. So for anyone that's just jumped onto this and they don't really know what a podcast is or what you would do as like a creative running a company, what do you sort of offer as a service firstly within the company?
Yeah, so it's everything I do basically is free for people. We're trying to encourage other people to be creative. I like to think of creative principles as kind of a combination of creativity and productivity. How do you be creative, longevity, long term? That's kind of the idea. My podcast is an interview series, sort of like this one. It's mostly me and one person as opposed to like a storytelling type thing. The video essay series is something I'm kind of working on. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what it is. It seems to be that I'll do like some behind the scenes things with directors. I'll put some of my screenwriting podcast interviews on there as part of kind of like the background to the story making process. I do some character development, character analysis. My biggest success so far, though, is actually this video on the 16 personalities, which is the Myers-Briggs test based on characters. So I break all those down as to like Tony Soprano is this, Walter White is this, various Game of Thrones characters. And I actually can be coming out some more of those videos pretty soon because they seem to be, people like to see, like they take the test, see what they are, and relate themselves to which character they're on TV.
Amazing, cool. So obviously all well and good running the company, but I think the main reason that you stood out to me is I think I see you in like a YouTube group. So just explain a little bit your YouTube journey from sort of like the start to where you're at now.
Yeah, definitely. I guess it would all kind of start like the very first thing I did. Excuse me. I was writing for a creative screenwriting magazine, so I was interviewing screenwriters, and then I pitched the idea of doing those interviews instead of just print. We went from the magazine to a website, so I thought we could take that beyond and also do a podcast. They actually just gave me permission to run with it, and I changed the name. Well, the part that I run is Creative Principles versus Creative Screenwriting, because I wanted to also talk to actors, directors, chefs, authors, a little bit of everything.
Sure.
So because of that, I wanted to also create a video dynamic. Like if you watch like people like Casey Neistat, they'll say video is king. And I think it's more interesting. I think if you create your art in a way that people want to see it and share it, and you can do it kind of quickly. Like if you're as a writer and I hand you something to read, it's going to take your time. And if I'm asking for your attention, that's not something people automatically want to give you. But if you're looking at a picture, like looking at a quote or watching a video, I think there's more to that they want to actually see it and share it and get into it and that kind of thing. So I wanted to create a different dynamic to that. So really just kind of figuring out what it is. And then there's a creative side, but also kind of a marketing side. And YouTube has kind of, with their algorithms, put me into a category that's based on the personality types, which is, I feel like it's not exactly what I do. So I'm kind of having to do it and build up this thing that people can, that like, and then I can also kind of sneak in the stuff that I think is actually
Sure.
great.
Wicked, cool. So what I sort of get from that is like you're saying like you almost sort of got a lot of traction off of one topic and you're sort of thinking you need to keep that going sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out a way to transition into like more of actually what I want to do, but still be kind of giving people what they want to see and everything. So I met with actually a YouTube expert a few days ago. He kind of gave me some of the little tidbits and back end algorithm type stuff to do. So my next video, like I've done one on the director this week. My next one will actually kind of go back into that topic. Like I'll do the 16 personalities based on Walking Dead characters, and then do one based on Game of Thrones characters and that kind of thing. And I'll probably do, it's kind of like you always hear people say, one for them, one for me, kind of the one thing that's popular, one thing that and I'm trying to transition that and get the feel and the tone so they're used to, I guess, hearing me and my point of view on these types of stories. And then that way we can kind of make the stuff I really want to make, but also give them something they like as well.
For sure, yeah. And I think the thing is with YouTube as well is like you'll always be adapting. So as you bring in new audiences, you're always going to consider what they want, but also you need to put yourself first, because
Yeah.
if you don't enjoy the content you're producing, right, you're never going to keep consistent with it. So
Yeah.
with that being said, Brock, like what sort of motivated you to sort of step out of your comfort zone, start creating these videos, and start building this brand that you're now a part of?
I think it was, I mean, that first video was a year ago. I'm actually made, I think it was 6 videos. That one eventually kind of took off, and I was almost ignoring it. I was in such an experimental phase.
Mhm.
I just turned like 30 years old. I was doing like, I started different freelancing jobs. I still do some freelance, but I was doing the YouTube thing. I made like 6 videos. I thought it would just be an experiment. We'll see what happens. I did a little magazine for a while. I ran a newspaper for a while. So all these things are kind of like, let's see what makes sense. And it's almost like you ignore the thing that you're best at. You ignore the thing that you're really good at, or that's like easiest to you because it's easy. And then
Mm.
I was thinking, like, well, it takes a lot to do YouTube. I mean, you have to be able to not only write the story, but feel comfortable giving your put your voice out there. And I feel like my first videos, my voice was terrible because you're just reading it. It takes a while just to sound natural. And then you have to like not and then have ideas and then be consistent and then take all the rejection and then post on like Reddit or just deal with, the internet can be a bit of a cesspool when you're putting something out there.
Mm.
And I've got another friend. So mine's called Creative Principles. Another guy that I've been talking to, we seem to be growing at a similar pace, called Hats Off Entertainment. And his are more like, they're all kind of documentaries, like short documentaries on John Candy and people like that. So he's grown really fast in the last like couple of weeks, really. And we're just talking about dealing with, if you can pull something from that, like, is there something good? If enough people say something, even though it's negative, one comment's not really a big deal, but 4 or 5, like, how can I use this to actually make it better versus
Mm.
just kind of like, if you can pull the emotional aspects out of it and just look at it logically, like to make the best videos, that's the whole point, is to
Yeah.
make the best videos in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's a difference between like hate comments and people that are
Yeah.
genuinely giving like constructive criticism.
Yeah.
So, with all of the different business models that you've sort of got running at the moment, if I was to take 2 apps away from you, whether that's like your, your iPhone or your computer, what would be 2 apps that you'd really struggle with on like a day-to-day basis?
What would I struggle not having? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Um, that's a good question. I mean, the things that I do for this job, I use pretty simple stuff. I actually do my own limitations on things. Like, at first, if you watch videos like Nerd Writer and some of those, they're great at editing and that kind of thing. I'm not as strong of an editor as far as like designing things like that. So I actually put some limits. I'm like, well, instead of spending a couple $100 or couple thousands of dollars to buy new equipment, what can I do with this? How can I stretch this? So one of the programs I use in writing and in filmmaking is a program called Canvas, which is just like free, easy designs.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really think of it at first, but if you can create a design on there that can use something as simple as like a Ken Burns effect, all of a sudden I can do something like multiple images.
Mm-hmm.
Just things like me. I don't have as many like I'm always more like pen and paper or my notes. Just notes in my phone is probably the thing I use the most, because I put all of my I've probably got 100 headline ideas for videos in there. I'm always making to-do lists and trying to rearrange those. Something I've heard described as ruthless prioritization is kind of what I try to focus on. I keep changing that. And I think it's okay to, you feel like you're wasting time making all these lists, but I think like that's the most powerful thing. I'm big into like the atomic habits mentality from James Clear, and really just trying to figure out what those essentials are that make the most sense. Like what one thing eliminates 100 other decisions.
Mm.
And I'm a person who's way better at 100%. I can't really do 98%. I can't do like, you know, because you're also still thinking about it. At 98%, everything is still a choice. If you're 100%, I don't do this, then you don't do it. You don't have to worry about it. So it's almost easier just to be, that total immersion is actually easier for me to do. than the other things. But yeah, I'm almost more like pen and paper than like an app that I use. I do use a habit tracker, but I'm kind of bad with it. It's almost like
I've got
I'm
that
not.
same thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's like, even, but I think as well, like that's one reason I love to ask that question is like, because you hear so many different things, and it's like, even like a note making app, for example, it's like, yeah,
yeah,
they're good, but it's like, yeah, like you said, pen and paper does the same thing. So
yeah.
the reason I like to ask that is I love to see different people's perspectives of like,
Mhm.
you know, even like a storyboard app for creating videos.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, it's good, but you know, you could literally just draw 6 blocks on a piece of paper and do the exact same
yeah.
thing. And it's
There's
almost
all.
like what you said is like, you can almost create those as barriers to not actually do what you're
Yeah,
trying to do with it. So no, that's really good. You mentioned a little bit about like habits and stuff like that. So I'd love to pick your brain when it
yeah.
comes to like the entrepreneurial side of things.
Mhm.
If someone was to type in this video, for example, and sorry, type in, you know, how to make money online or how to
Mhm.
start making YouTube videos, for example, what would be a good resource, whether it's a book, you know, a YouTube video, an online course, really to just set the pace, not necessarily to start an online business, but whether it's their mindset or, you know, like the fundamentals, like you said, their habits and stuff like that. Is there a key resource that sort of stands out for you?
I think for something like that, you really want to get super sensitive about what your area is. Like if you want to be, if you're someone who is wants to be an influencer and feels more comfortable with yourself on camera. Ironically, like I'm in my first video, but I'm not in my other videos. I just like was getting used to being on camera, I guess. And at the time, I was also doing this live show once a week for another job I had, where I talked about the TV show The Walking Dead.
Oh, cool.
Um, but I think it's more about like it's kind of boring. It's just putting in the reps, though. I think for anything, it's like I had to make 40 videos to kind of get past all this crap that was just in my way and these barriers. There's an author and writer named Tyler Cohen, and someone said, how do we read like you? How do we, get better at reading? He said, well, read 1,000 books. And he's talking about having that knowledge beforehand, and that, it kind of sucks, but that I was like a shortcut guy, like 4 hour work week all through my 20s. And it just like didn't really work. And the older you get, like the worse the outcomes from the shortcuts are. You're like, I should have just done this right the first time.
Hmm.
But some people call it a journalistic iceberg. And like if I were writing new articles about something every week, you're not really looking for, that top 20% is the news, the new breaking with the headline or whatever. The other 80% is my previous knowledge from everything I've done before that. So it's how I connect what's happening to all this other stuff. And that's why, like, if I were to, I did a video about the movie Extraction and talking about stuntmen and how they made the movie. But I would say underneath all that is just my experience with watching all these movies and all these interviews and kind of putting those pieces together in the best way possible. But it's more about, I would say it's more about reps than anything. And you're going to be embarrassed of the first few things you do, and the first one's going to suck, but the 100th one is not going to suck. You just keep doing it.
Wicked,
Yeah.
amazing, cool. So the next question is more so around, like the digital entrepreneurs that are really like doing like outreach and stuff like that. But I'd still love to ask you the following questions just to get your point of view on them. Have you ever used ClickFunnels before?
Yeah, I actually worked for ClickFunnels. I used to write their FOMO cure once a week. Yes, I worked for them until all this happened. They kind of they slowed
That's
down.
amazing that I didn't feel
Yeah,
like it would have been relevant. You're like, yeah,
yeah,
I work for them.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Quality. All right,
yeah,
talk to me a little bit more about that. So obviously the creative side, you was writing all of the funnels and stuff as well.
yeah. Yeah, so I got actually, so it kind of went back to what I was saying before. I had this weekly show where I talked about Walking Dead. We
Mm.
had like 1 million Facebook followers, and hundreds of people would ask me questions. And again, it's just talking about the same thing. It's crazy to think like I wrote like 1,000 articles on this TV show,
Hmm.
but that just like many startups do, that ended. That owner of that suggested me to a company. I still work for a company called Rose Club for Men. The idea is that like we help guys remember all the special occasions. You go on there and key in your wife's birthday, stuff like that. So I write some of their copy. One of the owners of that and one of the founders of that are is actually the marketing lead, John Parks at ClickFunnels. So he brought me into ClickFunnels. I worked there. I mean, like digitally, but I worked there as a freelancer writing all the FOMO cure emails.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a lot of good like insider tips. And the thing I would say, overall, what stands out about ClickFunnels versus like WordPress or other sites that makes it like a marketing company, but also kind of a software company, is that they kind of they change. I think they change the way we look at things because we're so used to Amazon. We go in there and there's 1,000 options, and this is the best option. ClickFunnels kind of takes that away for people who want to start their own business. And it's more like, here's the thing I do best. And
Mm.
then once you go and read that, and you're convinced to buy that, and you're in this mode where you want to buy that, then they offer you something else. And that's really what the ClickFunnels is. So you're, my favorite thing, and something I will likely do in the future is offer. They do the free plus shipping, and that was like one of my favorite techniques they do is. Let's say you write a book and you free plus shipping. So it's a free book. You pay $7 to get it shipped to you. The next offer is probably some course you do, something like that. And
Mm.
it's all, a lot of people do this. If you take a webinar, it's kind of the same
Yeah,
thing.
a lot
I
of
just,
people do
yeah,
it.
yeah. I just took Tucker Max's like 4-hour nonfiction writing series. And then the upsell to that is you get an email. I think it's like a $4,000 or $5,000 course, but it's all kind of, but I mean, I think there's a value in that too. Even if
Mm.
people don't, there's a percent who go through and a percent who don't. But I think it's, you almost have to give your stuff away, and you have to give away your best stuff. And you have to do things to figure out what your best results are. Like when Tim Ferriss wrote 4-Hour Work Week in some of his books, he would go and market the best headlines rather than trying to guess, because I'm a ghostwriter too. And I told a client yesterday, like, we shouldn't be guessing a headline. We should go buy ads, 4 or 5 just text only ads on Google, see what gets clicked on the most. There you go. Nothing to think about. Don't overthink it. It's not, you can't do it,
No, I like
like
that.
I think we're so like in love with this Steve Jobs idea of, you know, I know what they want better than they do. Most of us don't. That's like a
Yeah.
once in a generation thing. And it's a shortcut. There's just figure out a better way to do it, market it, figure out the best way to do it, do feedback. I wish YouTube had more offers. They don't seem to have, like, I wish I could go in and offer 4 different thumbnails for my videos in the first couple
Mhm.
of days and see. I don't know
Yeah,
why they don't do that. I guess I don't know. It's part of the way they do things. I wish they did a little more like that. I wish Reddit did the same thing. Reddit's very. I got kicked out of one of the subreddits like immediately because I was trying to change headlines and figure out what worked. And
okay.
I feel like the system itself should be good enough that if you get a couple clicks or you don't, you can go ahead and delete it and try again because it's more of like a wave you're riding anyway.
Mhm.
But there's a few people that are in there that don't like that, so they're kind of keeping this old method of things, and it's just trying to figure out how you can create the most value. And the whole thing about judging a book by its cover that we're told not to do is totally opposite now. You have to have a good thumbnail, a great headline, whatever. Then you have to deliver on top of that. You have to deliver 10 times as much as you promised.
For sure, for sure. And sorry, just to
Yeah.
pick your brain quickly about Reddit, do you find Reddit is a good tool within your arsenal when it comes to the YouTube videos?
I almost like haven't, but I'm kind of coming in a little bit late. Like if you go and look at my Reddit, I'm technically been on there for 4 years, but I've just kind of tried it off and on. I've tried it more so entertaining. He's above Reddit. He's just done these videos. He'll hit like 75,000 views in a day or two. So it's there for you if you can deal with the criticism and things like that. But for whatever reason, let's say that works in the movies category and the documentaries category for his
Mhm.
particular video, it may not work for mine. But if
Sure.
I do a Deadpool video in the Deadpool category and a Better Call Saul video in the Better Call Saul category, they at least get some views. It might just be a couple hundred, but you get some responses. And I think it's a good place just to get, even if they're just all negative, you kind of know what people are looking for. Like it's a good place to start if you don't have, because I know like I used to, like, all my businesses early on, I would show things to friends and family. Everyone's so supportive, and that's great and whatever. But you need somebody just to like hammer you
Yeah.
once in a while.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. And I feel like that's the thing with me with Reddit is like I barely post anything into Reddit, but I feel like when
Yeah,
you do, you just get so many weird stuff come through it. Um,
yeah,
I feel like I don't really know the people that are on Reddit. So
Yeah.
that's cool. So,
Mhm.
with all of that being said, the fact that you've gone out of your way to start all of these different ventures when it comes to the websites and the YouTube channel, et cetera, et cetera. What would be sort of like your tip? If I could say like one major tip for someone, like I said before, has come onto YouTube, they've typed in how to make money on YouTube, how to make money
Yeah.
online. What would be like your one tip for them to go and actually take action on in the next 10 days or so?
Yeah. I mean, I think authenticity is the biggest thing. I think that's why YouTube is what it is. But at
Hmm.
the same time, so I interview a lot of screenwriters, and a lot of I've done 200 interviews. All of them say that if you're going to reach out to them, let's say you like have one connection in the industry, what you should do is only reach out with your best thing. So you shouldn't send anyone a first draft. You shouldn't even send them a second draft. And it should be like your 10th draft of something. And
Mm.
it's like your one shot. It's like your one chance to do this. I think you should think of anything you're doing on YouTube in the same way, even though it's way easier to click the upload button. You should think of it in a way that like, this is all I have to put out there. Like, this is everything I can possibly do. And you can't be precious and you can't really hold anything back. I used to like, well, I'll do this now and I'll save this for later and this will be really good and this will follow that. But you just have to put like everything you have into this one thing, like it's this one chance. And I've also noticed that I was kind of torn between should I do one video a week? Should I do 4 videos a week? And then I kind of got, and I did that. And I didn't like them. If I'm uploading stuff, I don't even love it, or it's just like it doesn't quite feel right.
Yeah.
And then it's more like I started thinking well, some of these ideas I have in my notes or whatever are like one tier ideas. Like if I can think of it and write it and do it in 24 hours, it's probably not good enough for what I want to be doing anyway. It should take you a couple of days. It should take you a week to make whatever it is. I think you have to think of it like that way. And then actually, I took a bunch of videos down that I did like 2 weeks ago because I just didn't like them. I didn't think that even if you go look at my best video, I think my last video, every time I think my last video is my best video, and that's kind of how you should keep feeling.
100%.
But if someone watches that and they go watch an old one, it's not good. So I took down a lot. I'll probably continue to do that and like just make them the best I can. Like this is a live portfolio of what I'm doing,
Sure.
and I've also started to the website Arrows, AIROWS, which I've written for before. They'll publish some of mine. I've talked to some other companies. They haven't officially done it yet, but we're in the works of publishing some of my videos on their blogs.
Cool.
So I'm kind of thinking like, well, I'll do a video for me, a video for them, a video for this, and you're really writing it for one person. And I think
Nice.
that's the same way you should write anything. If you write your text the way you write emails, it's just better. It's more authentic. It's you more being comfortable and everything else.
Amazing, amazing, cool. So I mean, one thing that I'd love to find out from yourself, just simply because of your background, right? You're not just like someone that's like, okay, yeah, I want to be a YouTuber and has picked up a
Yeah.
camera and thought about it. What does your process look like from start to finish and like creating a video? Because I'm guessing it's going to be a lot different to like your typical YouTuber. I know you'll be a lot more specific in terms of like your script and, we've got
Yeah.
to record this, and this. So what does the start to finish look like when it comes to planning to actually executing a video?
Yeah. It's a little different. It kind of depends what the feature is. I would say 90% of the time, I'll write the script first. I'll have an idea. It's a movie that's like you're just getting that 1 2 hours and you're dividing it up. If I'm doing something about a show, I need to know like all 6 seasons and like what's the best examples and everything else.
Mhm.
It also depends if you're getting where you're getting your material from. If you're downloading from YouTube, which you can do on certain websites, so if you're pulling some of those clips, they're already there. So the stunt videos I've done one on Jackie Chan, one on that new movie Extraction. That one's like the opposite. So all I do is get all the footage, figure it out, and then kind of work backwards and write the script that way.
Mhm.
If I'm presenting an idea, I'll write the script first and then kind of fill it in. I think it's better. And I don't do anything new, so I'm not recording any footage, which would take a lot more time than this does.
Sure.
Um, but I think it's better doing it that way. So I've done the stunts, and then also this last one. So I did one called my last video is how John Mark Valet creates the perfect soundtrack. So he did Wild and Dallas Buyers Club and a movie called Demolition, where I interviewed the creator and did Big Little Lies. So his is a little different. So I'm trying to capture this like emotional state. So it's all about what scenes I'm presenting.
Hmm.
And I also got into a bad habit. I would say what led me to make bad videos was I was trying to get past YouTube's fair use laws, because they automatically say that whatever you're doing, they automatically say that, well, this is copyright, you can't use it. So I have to fight for every video, which means you have to make videos 4 days to a couple of weeks ahead of time, is what I'm finding out. Just to make sure, if you want to do, because what they do better if you do a schedule, like every Wednesday I'll do this video.
Right.
But if I'm waiting for someone to approve it and they've got 30 days to approve it, who knows when that's going to happen. So so I was cutting everything into like 9-second chunks, trying to make it work and cutting all these scenes out. And then I watch other people, I'm like, well, they just hold it. They just hold in the scene. It's better. It's longer. You actually make more money too if you have a 10-minute video versus a 6-minute video.
Sure.
So I kind of just like, I learned all these bad habits and incorporated them. And then I just like stopped. And I said, well, I'm just going to make these however I want to make them. And I'm thinking more about long-term and the best possible videos. So I'm doing a lot more research and digging in more. And I would say I'm constantly changing the way that I do it is probably the best answer. But I'm doing more research now, putting the clips to the side. I took Ken Burns' documentary course on Masterclass last week just to see, because a script that I'm used to and a documentary script is very different with the way you're writing the visuals and the text and the voiceovers and what you're recording and what still goes here and how this, it's a very detailed process and why it takes him so many years to do all these things. But I think the more time you do it is the better, but also you got to have some type of deadline. Like if you talk to or listen to Martin Scorsese or the way Pixar make movies, Pixar says we don't finish films, we release them. It just means that so I think of it this way, I've got a week and then this thing's got to go out one way or another. And it is kind of painstaking when you take that time and then YouTube will block you, or it won't show. And I think it's actually been slower because of the virus. Maybe there's some manual process where they have to approve it or something like that. So it used to be like, at least if there was a dispute, they would at least show the video so I could promote it as they figured out, is this money coming to me or coming towards the studio or whatever. And I've kind of gotten where I don't care as much about that. I just want this thing to be the best it can be and more of a long-term thinking on it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Perfect. So the last question I'd like to ask is all around teams and outsourcing. So obviously you mentioned that you're still working for a company. So as I can imagine, there's a lot of work you're doing, working a lot throughout the day. So have you got anything in place where you've got like a team, for example, helping you, or do you outsource anything when it comes to that? Obviously being a freelancer as well, right? You obviously have dealt with that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I haven't really, I've hired assistants in the past. I've done that type of thing. I've kind of changed to the mentality of I want to just really slow down what I'm doing and shrink what I'm doing and like hyper focus it on. I only want to do a few things. I want to maybe publish some articles on Medium. I want to make movies on YouTube. Like YouTube makes the most sense for me. I'm also on Twitter, but I don't really even care about Twitter. I could easily let that go. If I just did YouTube and nothing else, I don't have a Facebook. I don't have an Instagram other than what I do for other clients, but I don't personally do that. I just focus on this one thing and let it ripple out and like go that way.
Mm-hmm.
And like people like this stuff and I'm trying to make the best possible videos and hopefully build an audience. And I'd like to write books in the future and that kind of thing. But within this really specific, really cares all the other stuff that's happening. In my experience, I guess I was like 28 hiring an assistant, and I didn't have the do that. So I'd say if you've got like money to it pay somebody at least $20 an hour and you've got that much stuff going on, go ahead and do it. But you really shouldn't be that busy is my real opinion. I'm trying to get to where I've got 4 or 5 clients now. I write emails for 2 clients. I'm ghostwriting a book with someone, and then I'm doing some other like little marketing things here and there, like little easy stuff. But I try and just focus on more what I'm doing. Those things kind of pay the bills for now until this other stuff figures out. I've heard some of that helps with like writer's block though, just having all this little things going on, but not be overwhelmed by it. Chase Jarvis, the photographer, in his book Creative Calling, he says he tries to keep one big project, one medium project, and three small projects, and that way he can kind of bounce around and not feel stuck or overwhelmed or whatever. He can just kind of move between each thing. I think you should, for what I'm doing, I don't really need the outside help, but I do see it as valuable. If you, it is nice to have someone there, but I just
Mm.
hadn't really seen the definite need for it. I'm almost rather just start saying no to more things
Yeah,
rather than like
definitely.
ask for more help, you know.
Definitely. And yeah, that's one main thing that we always talk about is like within anything, there's usually only about 2, 3, 4 absolute max steps for you to get from
Yeah.
A to B. So, and there's always what we talked about before is like a lot of people like to overcomplicate it. They like to add all
Yeah.
of these extra steps that really don't actually move the needle in their business. So
Yeah.
thank you firstly for coming on. To finish up, I always like to ask this question because, you know, this podcast is supposed to be here for the long run. I'd love to have you on in a year's time so we can look back at this. Funny enough, I just done my first one, a second interview from like the first time that he ever come on. So where would you sort of like to see yourself this time next year? Is it fully deep dived into YouTube? Is it within the freelance game? What are you sort of hoping for?
I've actually literally just kind of broke down. I do like 90-day plans. I try to think about a year ahead, or at least in 90-day
Nice.
battle plans is what I kind of think of them like. And a year from now, I'm also, amidst all this, we're rehabbing a house. So that takes up a lot of my time, but we're almost done with that. So I can almost like fully be creative. But what I'd like to do is in a year from now, I'm completely self-reliant in a way that I don't have clients at all. As much as I like them, it's nothing to do with them. It's just like, if I could just kind of have the discipline and
Focus
the
on your own
income
stuff.
from YouTube. I like to have like a book agent and that kind of thing. I pitched a couple book ideas and been close, but not quite got there. So I'm trying to, you know, hopefully with the YouTube platform, build the audience. And I like to write, keep doing YouTubes. I'd like to write nonfiction books and also create documentaries that are larger than YouTube, larger scale than what this is, more like 2 hours or 4 hour series on things, but also kind of in the same realm of what I'm doing now. But
Amazing.
yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you again for coming on. I hope that we get a chance to speak about those goals in a year's time and hopefully check them off together. And yeah, thank you very much, Connor. Brock, where can everyone find you? YouTube channel. I know you said you're not on Instagram or Facebook or anything. So
Yeah, just creative principles, and that's like PLES principles. That way, it's on the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud, and the same name is on YouTube. If you actually go type in 16 personalities, I'm one of the top ones to pop up. You'll see a picture of the Dragon Queen from Game of Thrones, and that's my big video. And there's other ones after that one as well.
wicked. Yeah. So guys, go and check Brock out. Go and support him over on his channel, and I'm sure we'll get him back on next year to check those goals off together. So thank you guys for watching and listening at home. I'm sure you would have got some value out of that episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Bye.
Hollywood 6.